Hello and welcome into another episode of Home Field Advantage. Hope you're all having a great week or weekend, wherever and however you may be listening to this podcast across our great country or our great land. This is also doubling as my Patriots post-game podcast, whatever you want to call it. Um, but I'm trying to proverbially do two things at once. So trying my best there. So I'm going to get into the Pats game in a second. I think we were brought to bear a few conclusions from that game that I think we haven't really talked about all year. So we get to that first. But first and foremost, this is the first time I've recorded since the mass casualty event that occurred near my hometown here in Lisbon, Maine. So certainly had the short video on Thursday morning when the news first broke of the mass shooting, but just wanted to acknowledge it again. Um, Horrible situation, 18 people killed and 13 injured, just miles from where I'm recording right now. Um, and in addition, the subsequent investigation and whatnot happened miles from uh, where I am now. So it's a horrible situation. My prayers, my thoughts are with the victims and their families. It's unimaginable, and it goes without saying. I I would really just point out that our community is a strong community, but it's going to take a lot of time to heal. And I never really know the right things to say, but in this case, that's where I'm leaving it. Um, it's going to take a lot of time for this community to heal. It's not going to happen in a couple days. You know, the national media has packed up and moved on, right? It's going to take a while, and if I could do anything to help, right, I would just try and hope that um, maybe that I could help in some way keep the community together, by just not um, bringing it up all the time. That tends to happen sometimes in these situations. Is the focus of it all brings a lot of reliving of horrible and traumatic things. So I don't really know what else to say, but I just wanted to acknowledge that one more time. Just a horrible thing, and I think Mainers are strong, and I think we're a we're a rugged bunch. But we're a people that have a lot of resilience. But it's going to take a lot of time for this community to heal, and um, yeah, I guess I just don't know what else to say. It's been a really really tough thing. I guess the last thing I would just point out is an extreme sense of gratitude that I feel, or I should say, tremendous sense of gratitude that I feel for the first responders and the law enforcement personnel. Uh, having law enforcement personnel from all over the region here is certainly something that I am thankful to have had the support of in our community. Hearing police choppers over your house for a few days is unsettling, to say the least. But I just have tremendous respect and appreciation for everything that they do, and I think that that's going to stand out, um, as the dust settles here. Uh, is that they did a really good job, um, but still a horrible event, and it's just a reminder that life is so precious and really delicate. All right, so again, my thoughts and prayers are with the victims of the Lewiston mass shooting, in casualty. And then also my gratitude is with the folks in law enforcement. It's going to change it. It's a life-changing thing to have this happen in your backyard for sure. But not even close to as life-changing as losing a loved one. So just keeping them in my thoughts and prayers. Okay. Trying to move on as best I can here, talking about the Patriots game. I'm going to pull up some stats real quick here. So if you're watching live on Instagram, I apologize for the distractions. But moving on to talk about the New England Patriots here, I'm going to pull up some stats from the game as best I can. I apologize for not doing this ahead of time. But my big takeaway is this: the Patriots continue to lose games in like one of two ways, and it's increasingly frustrating to deal with this on a weekly basis and not have a path forward where you can see them competing in any game. I can't see them competing in any game because even when sorry, I am all over the place trying to look up these stats. ESPN's probably the best place to look, don't you think? I would say so. All right, sorry about this, everybody. All right, let me just start that thought over. The joys of live programming. If you're listening on audio, maybe I'll cut this out. The problem with the Patriots is this, okay? They have continued to lose games in two ways, right? Like, I can see them competing in future games. Maybe that wasn't fair, but it's going to be hard for them to win a lot of games. And I've been saying this from the beginning. The margin of error is just so small, right? Like, they don't have the luxury of sitting around and waiting till the fourth quarter to have another good touchdown drive for the first time in 2.5 quarters. Like, they don't have that luxury. It doesn't exist. They don't have a quick score ability. They don't have a defense that is creating turnovers. They just don't have these things. So if they're going to compete and be in close games like they have been, then they basically have to play perfect football. I think against Buffalo, they played almost as close to perfect football as you can. They had opportune takeaways that led to offensive points. They had really good special teams situations, whether that be field position or field goals. And then they played really well on third down against Buffalo. Today, Miami started 0 for 6 on third down, but they completed 3 fourth downs, including a 4th and 4. Mike McDaniel, got news for you guys. He doesn't respect Bill Belichick. He doesn't respect Bill Belichick. He doesn't care. He clearly doesn't care. He did whatever he wanted to do offensively in that game. He did whatever he wanted to do. Mike McDaniel on 4th and 4 said, "Yeah, I know I'm coaching as a guy who has 6 Super Bowl rings. I don't care." And to me, that's like a huge indictment on Bill, and we're going to get to Bill in a second. But to me, it's like they don't have the luxury of playing in a close game like they have been against Vegas or Buffalo or Miami, or even against Miami the first time, or Philadelphia or anybody else. Like, if you take out the 2 blowouts, they've been in close games, but they're still like 2 and 3 or 2 and 4 in those games. Right? They've got the 2 blowout losses. but then they're 2-4 in basically one-score games. I mean, and I know, yes, today's game ended up being 31-17, but I'm looking at this game and, like, again, just like the first Miami game, I don't think Miami did anything that was surprising. But the Patriots are, again, finding themselves in a close game with a good team. I think Miami's good, of course. They've beaten you twice now. But they haven't been able to get over the hump because their margin of error is so small that, like, Mac Jones didn't play great today. Mac Jones played okay today. I don't think he sucked, but he certainly wasn't as good as he needed to be for you to win that game. But, like, in order for the Pats to win these close games, Mac has to basically play perfect. The offensive production has to be, like, they have to score on probably 80% of their possessions because their defense, meanwhile, is missing Matt Judon, Christian Gonzalez, Jawan Bentley got banged up today. And suddenly you're looking around and the margin of error between injuries, between turnovers, Mac had a turnover, right? Didn't end up costing them more than 3 points. But if they get a touchdown right there, that's a 10-point swing. They end up losing by 14. Meanwhile, they were able to take advantage of some of Tua's turnovers. Tua had a fumble on a snap exchange with Mostert that resulted in a field goal. And he also had an interception that Duggar brought back, and eventually the Patriots scored a touchdown on a pass from Jones to Bourne. And so they were able to win the turnover battle. But the problem is their defense was consistently giving up 3rd and 14 chunk plays, 3rd and 13 chunk plays. And look, the officiating was suspect. You can go through a handful of calls. You can talk about the J.C. Jackson DPI. You can talk about the illegal man downfield. You can talk about the helmet on Devontae Parker, all these things, not to mention the fumble that happened before the whistle. It's interesting how forward progress only really matters if it's Ramondre Stevenson against the Cincinnati Bengals and not today. But I digress here. They made some plays in this game. It wasn't like they didn't do anything, and there was some situations where the officiating was suspect. But ultimately, you just cannot allow 3 first-half, 4th and goal conversions, or you can't allow a big play on 3rd and 14. Mac Jones can't throw a pick 6 on the Miami side of the field. Like, all these things just cannot happen if the Patriots are going to be competitive and win. And unfortunately, that's what's beginning to happen. It's actually more of the feature and not the bug. Meaning, it's not an anomaly that they're undisciplined and aren't able to tackle and aren't able to get off the field and aren't able to sustain drives. And it seems like offensively they give up if it's 2nd and 10 or more. If their first down play doesn't materialize, then the possession's over with, essentially. So these things are frustrating. Diesel wants to know about the terrible officiating going on in the league. Look, I talked about it just now. There was a handful of calls that were really frustrating. But let me be unequivocally clear. The Patriots did not lose to the Miami Dolphins today because of the officiating. That's, the officiating is one piece of the puzzle, right? When you have a team that has such a small margin of error, then the officiating is going to be bad week in and week out. It's just the nature of the beast. The NFL officiating has been inconsistent, but other than a call that happens at the end of a game, right? Like the last year's Super Bowl or the Super Bowl before that, when there were calls at the end of the game, or when there was the Saints NFC Championship non-DPI or anything, or several years ago, Gronk was held in the end zone by Luke Kuechly and it was non-called. Like, obviously there are times where the officiating directly impacts the outcome of the game. But today, I think the Patriots lost because they had poor execution on defense in third down situations, and an inconsistent offense that at times looked like they could really move the ball, and at times looked like, they were a JV offense. As far as the Rams are concerned, I didn't watch that game. Obviously, I was watching the Patriots game. I know there were some questionable calls in that game, but what I'd say about that is LA lost 43-20. All right, when you lose by 23 points, it's a lot more than just the officiating. But I think the NFL has a serious problem with this, though. All that matters is the appearance of impropriety, right? Like, it doesn't actually matter if there is a rigged job going on. There's a lot of people that think the NFL is rigged. I don't. I don't think it's rigged. I think that there are a plethora of gray areas that are made gray on purpose. That way it absolves the league from accountability. I think it's intentionally unclear what a lot of these rules are. That way they can be interpreted however they want to be on the spot. I don't think it's premeditated in any way. I just think it's intentionally unclear. That way nobody ever gets questioned. But that's the problem, is the appearance of that impropriety as a result of the, unclear and ambiguous nature of NFL officiating leads fans to think that the NFL is rigged. And I've said this before, that's almost just as damaging as the league being rigged itself, because now you have a sector of fans that believe that this league is rigged. And it doesn't matter if it is or isn't. If somebody believes that and the league doesn't do anything to squash it, then what are the fans left to think? Right? So, I mean, what are they left to think? So that's my question. That's my answer to Kyle's question there on the spot. Is the officiating is intentionally unclear? That way it absolves them of any real accountability. That's just, I think, the way that it's drawn up. Now, moving back to the Pats game for a second here. I had this thought. I shared it with my friends. In fact, Kyle, you're in that group text. I think there is a strong case to be made now that Bill Belichick is a good, not great coach. And I usually don't like to participate in these Bill Belichick hot takes. He's still an amazing coach. I really do think he's a good coach in terms of being able to draw up a game plan, being able to put together a situation where he puts guys in positions to succeed. I do think he finds guys that not a lot of coaches believe in. He sees talent in places where some people get passed up on. All of those things are true, and I believe them. However, I do not think he is a great coach in terms of winning. He is just not. He is a below 500 quarterback. He's a below 500 coach without Tom Brady as his quarterback. That's not an opinion, that's a fact. He is not a 6-time Super Bowl champion, if not for an amazing offensive performance by Tom Brady in the fourth quarter of both 49 and 51. Now, in 2018 against the Rams, he had a tremendous game plan against that high-flying Sean McVay offense, and he worked it to a T, and they only scored 3 points. I'm not saying he's not a good coach, but in terms of being an elite all-time coach, I think it's time to have that discussion. And the reason why is today, Mike McDaniel was in diapers when Bill Belichick was winning his first Super Bowl as a coordinator with the Giants. He was in grade school when Bill Belichick first became a coach in this league. And he is, as I pointed out at the beginning of the show, consistently running circles around Bill Belichick. And I don't have the numbers in front of me. I meant to prepare this ahead of time. But if you look back at the wins that Bill has, he's beaten the Jets a handful of times. I think like 18 times in a row or something like that. So most of those Jets teams have been quarterbacked by bad players like Zach Wilson or Sam Darnold. He's beaten um, he's beaten Josh Allen twice in their last 6 meetings, um, including a playoff game that they lost in which I think the Bills scored a touchdown on all 7 possessions. They don't beat anybody good. They struggle against good quarterbacks. He's not done a really good job developing Mac Jones. I just think it's time to have that conversation that Bill Belichick without Tom Brady is not an elite coach. He's a good coach, but he's not a great coach. I think Bill Belichick without Tom Brady would still probably have won a Super Bowl. I'm not going to get too carried away. But I do think that there's a case to be made that Bill Belichick is not a Hall of Fame coach without Tom Brady. I do think Tom Brady did benefit early in his career from some of the Bill Belichick defenses that were constructed. But again, the sustained level of success and numbers don't lie. He is a below 500 quarterback, below 500 coach. Jeez, I keep doing that without Tom Brady. And so the earlier you begin to acknowledge that, and look, I started acknowledging that when Tom Brady left New England and won a Super Bowl with Bruce Arians. Now, look, I don't want to say that he should get fired. I don't want to say that he's a horrible coach and that he's useless. That would be hyperbolic. But I do think that I've come to the conclusion today, just based on what Mike McDaniel continues to do with him offensively. And it's not just him. I mean, the Bills in recent years have done whatever they wanted to do. The Dallas Cowboys. Now, look, I know Mac Jones threw a couple picks in that game and had a strip sack. But the Dallas Cowboys did whatever they wanted to do against Bill Belichick. The Saints, led by Derek Carr. They're not world beaters. And I just think if you look over and over, Belichick is still a good defensive-minded coach. But again, if you're a good defensive-minded coach, I mean, Tyreek Hill is 112 yards. The Jalen Waddle wide open at the end of the game, giving up 3 fourth-down conversions in the first half, leading to points. All of these things are things that in the old days, Brady would have covered that up. Brady's obviously better than Mac Jones, so Brady would have made those throws that Jones didn't make today. And, the Pats probably would have scored close to 30, and I think the time of possession and whatnot would have benefited New England, and maybe you see them win that game 31-24. Now, being at Miami is a little bit of a crapshoot because even Brady never played that well down there. But again, guys, I just look at what I've seen. And what I've seen is that, yes, Mac Jones is a developing quarterback that has struggled. I'm a big Mac guy. Even I'll admit that he has not been amazing this year. But you look at what Belichick is supposed to build his team around, right? He's supposed to build his team around hard-nosed defense. And I know they're missing guys, but I looked around. They did not tackle well against Buffalo. They did not tackle well against Miami today. And then obviously in the games against Dallas and New Orleans, they were completely blown out. I thought they played really well in the first 2 weeks when they had Christian Gonzalez and they had Matt Judon. But since then, I look at Belichick, supposed to be an elite defensive coach, and he completely gets run in circles by a Miami team that doesn't surprise you that they're going to utilize Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle or Raheem Mostert. They were running to the edge all day, and there were no adjustments made to stop that. I know they lost Bentley mid-game, but that's my big takeaway with the Patriots right there is, I spent my entire life believing that Bill Belichick was an elite defensive coach. I think he's good. I'm not sure anymore if he's great without Tom Brady. I could be wrong. I would hate for him to go away from New England and go win a Super Bowl anywhere else. I do think you should hold on to him as a coach at this moment in time. I have not seen enough to fire him. Um, I just haven't. I mean, if you're going to fire him, who are you going to replace him with? Unless you have an answer to that question, I'm not interested in doing it, because they didn't have a succession plan for Tom Brady. The Crabs did not have a succession plan for Tom Brady. I don't want to see what a half-assed succession plan for Bill Belichick looks like. All right, switching gears to baseball real quick here, and then a quick hockey thought before I wind up. Baseball, the World Series, give it a chance. I haven't been able to watch, simply as I said at the beginning. In my neck of the woods, we were glued to the news the past few days. So I did not have a chance to see game one. And then game two last night, I was just way too tired. I went to bed early. But Merrill Kelly pitching amazing in game two, getting a win for Arizona. And then Adolis Garcia with a huge walk-off in game one. This World Series, give it a chance. I think the Rangers are great franchise. I think they knocked off Houston, who's been the big bad bully in the American League for so long. They were able to put together a winning season without Jacob deGrom. And I have a lot of respect for what the Texas Rangers have done this year. Same thing with the Arizona Diamondbacks. That's a team that wasn't on my radar at the beginning of the year. But they've had unbelievable contributions from their young players. And Merrill Kelly has shown why he is one of the best young pitchers in baseball. So give it a chance. I'm going to try and give it a chance now that we're in the thick of it here. But just because it's not Yankees, Dodgers, or whatever doesn't mean it's not worth our time. All right, last thing real quick. Bruins thought. Watching the Bruins, they're 7-0-1. I believe at this point they're the only team that hasn't lost in regulation, at least in the Eastern Conference, that is. They continue to be a wagon in the regular season. The goalie tandem continues to be something that they are utilizing well. My question would be, Jeremy Swayman and Linus Ullmark are playing lights out right now. Jeremy Swayman, I think, is 3-0-0, or maybe 4-0-0 at this point in his season thus far with the 126 goals against. I think Ullmark must be 4-0-1 or 3-0-1 or something like that. They're both playing lights out. They are. The rotation has shown to still be a fruitful endeavor by the Boston Bruins. My question is, how long can this last? I think there's been a lot made of that in the postseason. I think the Bruins need to make it there first. But if these two guys keep going like this and they're playing this well as a tandem, you have to go into the postseason with them both as a option in each game. I don't think you can go with Linus for 6 games and throw Swayman in there for the 7th game. I don't think you can do that this go round. I think you got to, if you're going to go with Ullmark for the first 2 and maybe Swayman for the next 1, and then back to Ullmark for 1, then maybe back to Swayman for 1, and then kind of ride the hot hand for game 7, you do that. But I don't think it's worth tinkering with, dicking around with, whatever you want to say. I don't think it's worth doing that right now because the teams are just so strong, or excuse me, the players are just so strong by themselves. But maybe that's a topic we'll revisit in the spring. But as long as those things are going, I think it's good, a good time for the Bruins to just ride it as long as it can go. But I think I've taken this podcast as long as it can go for today. Appreciate you all tuning in, hitting us up on Instagram live if you're watching there, and then also on our YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Again, just want to extend my sympathies to the victims of the tragedy that has occurred in my community this week. It's been a horrible time. I can only imagine what some of those folks are going through, and I just hope that, by being a part of this community, I can somehow be a small, even if it's a microscopic, factor in how we all heal together, because it's going to take all of us to heal together. And so if you live in the Lewiston Auburn community, in the greater area, as I do, um, I just hope that we can all rally together and get through this difficult time as a community, um, as one people, because the greatest strength that humanity has is our God-given ability to connect with one another. That is our greatest strength. Our greatest strength isn't me doing a podcast or writing an article or Tua Tagovailoa hitting Tyreek Hill for a 60-yard touchdown. Our greatest strength as humans is in our God-given ability to connect with one another, and to comfort one another. So I hope we're able to do that. And I hope that you're able to enjoy the rest of your week wherever you may be. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, my name is Will Highland, and you've been listening and watching Home Field Advantage.